Hey everybody, welcome back to the Bourbon Note. I'm Ben. I got a brand new budget banger from Beam on the bar. Let's get into it. All right, so tonight on the bar we've got, bam, this is Jim Beam Winter Reserve. So this one is a brand new one from Jim Beam. Apparently it's a limited release. It's called Winter Reserve 86 proof. So that makes me a little skeptical of this one. But to be perfectly honest, I've seen some favorable reviews of this and it piqued my curiosity. So we're gonna get into it tonight. It does say notes of vanilla and cinnamon right on the front. So usually I don't like to read the tasting notes, but it's kind of hard to avoid them when they're right on the front of the whiskey. But let's get into it. Wow. On the nose right off the bat, excuse me, this definitely jumps out of the glass a little more than the 86 proof might suggest it would. Speaking of wood, there's a lot of oak. By the way, I should probably mention what the special deal with this is. It says it's a smooth 6-year age-stated bourbon, amber bourbon, finished in new toasted white oak barrels. So it says finished in, not aged in toasted oak, but finished in. So I'm assuming that's a secondary barreling. Definitely the oak jumps out. I am getting the cinnamon that they mentioned on the label. A little bit of the vanilla. The vanilla to me is coming through more in like that, I've mentioned before on the channel, like the zebra cake, if you're familiar with those. Kind of like that waxy, artificial Little Debbie cake vanilla. And then maybe like a little bit of nutmeg and like some spice. Definitely holiday vibes jumping out of the glass. Let's see what happens on the palate. Cheers. That is shockingly good for an 86 proof, $25 bourbon. That's definitely, so not much in the way of mouthfeel. I mean, 86 proof, you're probably not gonna get a ton of viscosity on it, although it is a secondary barreling, apparently. But it's nice. I mean, it's really, a lot of the flavors on that first sip kind of transferred from the nose, kind of the same sort of thing, kind of what you smell is what you get. The oak and cinnamon seem to be up front, and that vanilla and nutmeg and spice kind of seem to be on the back end of this and a little bit on the finish. Let's get into another sip here because I'm shocked at how good this is. I gotta see if that first sip was a fluke. That first sip was not a fluke. Definitely not a fluke. This is surprising, I gotta tell you. As I mentioned, I bought this because I've seen some favorable reviews of it. And to be honest, that's not always the best way to go about picking a whiskey that you buy, because sometimes, which is a weird thing to say as somebody who's on the internet reviewing whiskey, but let me put it this way. It's a weird thing. It's not always the best thing to do when it's like something that's kind of out of your normal realm. You know, like an 86 proof bourbon, I usually don't like to dip below 90. Closer to 100 is where I kind of prefer my proof point. And so when you hear something favorable about something that you normally maybe would just walk past, that can kind of get you into some trouble, because then you end up buying it and you're like, oh yeah, no, this is exactly what I was expecting, and this is why I pass on bourbons like this. This one is really, really surprising me. Now, it is 86 proof at the end of the day. It's not going to knock your socks off, but for what it is, for the budget price that it is and the low proof that it is, this thing packs a lot of flavor. Definitely, again, not much more to say about it other than what I've already said, the oak and cinnamon up front, the spice and the vanilla and the nutmeg kind of on the back end of it. It doesn't do a ton, but what it does really, really well. And what it does is kind of like a holiday spice sort of vibe. This would, I don't know, I'm just picturing like Thanksgiving and Christmas decorations. And even like fall vibes. Let's go in for the third sip, polish this glass off, come back with some final thoughts. Yeah, I'm not mad at that at all. I'm actually gonna enjoy drinking this one, surprisingly. It's been a while since I've had a bourbon in the 80s proof. Again, I typically like it a little bit above 90, closer to 100. I mean, I love cask strength stuff, but just for like a regular average sipper, kind of around that 100 proof is kind of just my preference. But this is really good, and actually, I'm looking forward to having a few more pours of this weekend. I think that this is, if you don't mind a cocktail with a lower proof bourbon in it, this would be a great choice because the flavors outweigh the low proof in it. When this was watered down, it didn't water down the flavors nearly as much as it watered down the alcohol, or like sort of like the ethanol bite, because it's very, very approachable. I think that this would be excellent for beginners because I think this would be a good way to kind of explore a little bit more of a flavorful bourbon in that spice and oak kind of category without having to have something of a higher proof. Typically, when you're new to bourbon, those lower proof ones are a little bit easier to drink, but sometimes they're just so low on flavor, you don't really want to recommend them. I would almost at this point typically recommend people kind of start at like the 90 proof point. This one definitely, I think, I would recommend for a beginner. To be perfectly honest, I hope that this is not a limited release. I hope they keep this on the shelves. I think that this one definitely should be part of their regular lineup, because as far as I can remember from the kind of base lineup of Jim Beam products, this one stands out for sure. I think this is one that you could maybe bring to like a holiday gathering. You got some family members that aren't into bourbon but maybe want to, you know, try a pour or whatever. I think they could enjoy it, but I think you as a seasoned bourbon drinker, if that's what you are, I'm assuming you're pretty into bourbon if you're watching this channel, could still enjoy it. Now, again, it is 86 proof. It does drink flavor-wise a little bit above that, but it's not gonna blow you away. But I do find this one rather surprising considering what it is. So I'm gonna recommend this one. I think that this, for the 25 bucks, if you're looking for a lower proof, good flavor bourbon, I think this is definitely worth a shot. And I do tend to look for bourbons like that. I like to find something that's lower on the proof side and higher on flavor, because sometimes you don't want to just sit and drink cask strength bourbon all night and wind up hammered. You want to have a couple of pours casually, so you want something a little bit lower proof so you don't get quite so out of control, but you want the flavors there as well. I think this one is going to be enjoyable for that. So let me know in the comments if you've had this one, and if you think that it drinks above its maybe expectations at the 86 proof point. So I would love to hear your opinions on it. This has been Jim Beam Winter Reserve on the Bourbon Note. I'm Ben. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you very, very much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.